Hello lovelies, my name is DK Onyu and you're welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video I want to show you how you can trim off the excess between the front half length and the back half length using the freehand method. So here is my back bodice. I went ahead to cut lining for each of the pieces that I cut. As you can see, that's the center back. I cut the lining like so. I did the same thing for the front bodice also, as you can see. So I went ahead to mark half of an inch on the side front of my bodice, and I did the same thing to the center back of the bodice like so, because that's where I'm going to have the joining. So that's the folded part of the front bodice. So I'm going to open it up and flip it to the down of it like so, because we're going to stitch from the down straight to the top. So I went ahead to mark half of an inch of seam allowance at the side front of my front bodice. So just watch where I'm going to start sewing from. I'm going to start sewing from the half length line, which is the waistline like so. So I'm going to start sewing from there using the half of an inch of sewing allowance as my guide. So you just sew gently like so till you get to the top of your bodice like so. So I'm going to go ahead and notch the half of an inch seam allowance like so. I'm going to go ahead and trim off the excess so that it's going to relax well like so. Then open it up to the front and trim off any excess you can see at the top of your bodice. So I'm going to repeat the same thing to the other side of the side front. You know, we have two pieces of the side front, so I'm going to repeat what I did to the first one onto the second side like so. You sew from the down straight to the top like so, then trim off the notch it and trim off the excess like so. So if you notice any excess at the top of your bodice, just trim it off like so. As you can see, it's actually giving us this busty effect also. So I'm going to repeat what I did to the fabric onto the lining like so. Keep that aside. So on the top of my fabric, I went ahead to mark half of an inch seam allowance. So I'm going to place the front of my lining onto the front of my fabric like so. Then stitch on the half of an inch at the top of my off shoulder bodice like so. Make sure the lining and the fabric aligns well. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch on it to turn the neckline of my off shoulder bodice. The top is the neckline of the off shoulder bodice like so. So after sewing, I'm going to trim out the excess. I'm going to trim off the excess like so, as you can see. So I'm going to top stitch on my lining to secure the neckline of my off shoulder bodice like so. After that, I'm going to sew the two sides of the front bodice like so. So I'm going to go ahead and sew the waistline of my off shoulder bodice like so to keep the lining in place. So as you're sewing, try and check if the lining and the fabric aligns. Just make sure it aligns like so. So I'm going to stitch it to put the lining in place like so, as you can see. So after that, I'm onto the back bodice. So I'm going to, as you can see, the way I placed it, the center back and the side back. So I'm going to pick it up one after the other like so. Place it onto each other, the front facing the front like so. So we are going to sew from the down, that is the half length, straight to the top. So I went ahead to mark half of an inch on the center back of my off shoulder bodice like so and stitch on it. Just watch the way I'm sewing. Trim off the excess like so. Then there's an excess at the top, that is the neckline of my back body, so I trimmed it off, as you can see. So I went ahead to mark half of an inch on the neckline of my off shoulder bodice. So I also went ahead to repeat the same thing I did on the fabric onto the lining. So you're going to place the front of the right side of the lining onto the right side of the fabric and stitch on the half of an inch seam allowance we marked on the neckline of the back bodice, like so. So after sewing, I went ahead to trim off the excess, like so. Then I top stitched on my lining to secure the line, like so. Then I stitched the zipper area of my back bodice, like so. I went ahead to stitch the side of my back bodice, like so. Then I went ahead to stitch the down, which is the waistline of the back bodice, to secure the line. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat the same thing to the other parts of the back bodice. So you can see how the front is looking. It's giving this bustier look because we actually contoured the front while cutting. So as you can see, I actually gave it a good press. I did the same thing to the back also. Then here is my back bodice. I placed the front facing the front, like so. So at the top, which is the neckline, if you can remember, our cross back is 13 divided by 2, that is 6.5. So at the neckline, I'm going to first impute the zip allowance of 1 inch, like so. So from that 1 inch, I'm going to go ahead and impute the across back, which is 6.5, like so, on the neckline of my back bodice. So I marked the half of an inch seam allowance, like so. So I went ahead to reshape the armhole, as you can see. Then on the chest line, that is, I'm going to impute the bust measurement. Our bust is 34 divided by 4 is 8.5. So I'm going to go ahead and mark the zipper allowance first. Then the bust is 34 divided by 4. We have 8.5. So I'm going to place my tape starting from the zipper allowance of 1 inch, like so, and mark my 8.5 for the bust, like so. 8.5. So I went ahead to mark 0.3 of an inch for ease. Remember when we were cutting. So on the waistline, like so. So remember the notch we made while cutting is going to actually guide us. That is the nape to waist. That is the back half length. So I'm going to go ahead and create my choking there, as you can see. Then I'm going to from there place my zipper allowance of 1 inch, like so, because that is now our new back half length. So her waist is 28 divided by 4 is 7. So I'm going to place my tape from the 1 inch seam allowance and mark 7, like so, as you can see. So on the side back, as you can see, I'm going to first of all measure the nape to waist, the difference there. From where I notched, I have 1.5 of an inch. 1.5 of an inch. So I'm going to go ahead and divide 1.5 of an inch by 2. So I have 0.75. So I'm going to go ahead and place that 0.75 on the side back, like so. You place 0.75. This is where you marked the waist measurement, the 7, and also at the side back, like so. Just watch where I'm pointing my hand. So I'm going to go ahead and connect it back to where we notched, which is the new back half length. So I'm going to go ahead and trim off the excess, like so. So on the front also, I'm going to impute my across front, which is 12.5. 12.5 divided by 2 is 6.25. So I'm going to go ahead and place it from the folded part of my fabric. I'm going to place 6.25, like so. Then after that, I'm going to impute half of an inch for seam allowance. That is for attaching the sleeve to the armhole, like so. As you can see. So I went ahead and reshaped the armhole, like so. So on the chest line, just make sure you puff it out, the bust area, you puff it out. That nipple to nipple point, you puff it out to give this bustier feel. So from the further part, I'm going to place the bust measurement, that is 34 divided by 4, 8.5 plus 0.3 of an inch for ease, like so, as you can see. So on the waistline, I'm going to impute our waist, that is 28 divided by 4, we have 7. So just watch the way I'm going to place my tape in a slanty way, like so. So I'm going to mark 7 inches. So on the side front, we are going to impute the 0.75 we imputed on the side back. We are going to impute it on the side front also. Remember that the nape to waist, the allowance we got at the points we notched is 1.5 divided by 2 is 0.75. So I'm going to go ahead and impute that same 0.75 on the side front like so. So I went ahead to connect from the 0.75 straight to the dart leg of the side front. The dart leg, that is the nipple to nipple point. We've already sewn it, so you're going to stop there like so. As you can see where I'm placing my chalk. As you can see, this is a closer view where the nipple to nipple point we stitched. That is where the line is going to stop at. Just watch the way it is like so. So I'm going to cut off the excess on the armhole. So I went ahead to impute the same measurement on the other side of my front bodice like so. I repeated what I did onto the other side of the bodice like so. So for the back bodice also, I repeated the same thing onto the other side of the back bodice like so, as you can see. So as you can see, I'm going to go ahead and place the front onto the back like so and stitch on the markings I made. So I'm going to go ahead and use my pin to guide me like so. Place it and make sure it aligns with each other, and cross check if the lines where you marked your measurement align to the front, if the front and the back measurement are aligned. So I'm going to go ahead and use my pin to guide me like so, to make things easier for me while sewing. So while you're attaching your pin, make sure it's aligned like so. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch on the line I made, the measurement I imputed like so. Like so. While sewing, just remove your pins. So after sewing, you can see how it's looking like so, front and the back like so. This is the right side of my off shoulder bodice, as you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and place the back onto the back like so. Just watch the way I placed it. Make sure everything aligns, everything is laying flat like so. Make sure everything aligns. So I'm going to go ahead and cut through those lines I made on the waistline. So watch where I'm cutting from. I started from the front. I'll cut from the front straight to the back, to the center back. From the side front straight to the center back. Just watch where I'm placing my scissors. From the front. So I stopped. As you can see, just watch the way I'm actually cutting through. Cut a little bit from them, then flip it and continue cutting from the little opening you made. This is a freehand method of trimming off the excess between the front half length and the back half length. As we all know, the front half length and back half length are not the same. So this method actually helps to eliminate any zipper bulge that might occur at the back bodice. And the good thing about this method of trimming off the excess is that it actually helps and makes the zipper at the back bodice to sit perfectly well. So here's how the inside looks like, and the back, here's how it looks like. As you can see, you can notice the excess. So I'm going to go ahead and come up by 1 inch on the sides of my bodice like so. Come up by 1 inch. So I went ahead and used my seam ripper to lose the stitch I made there. Stop at the 1 inch I marked like so to create an opening. Then I'm going to stitch from the 1 inch I marked straight up like so to secure the stitch. Then I'm going to do the same thing to the other side also like so. So I went ahead to secure the waistline of each of my bodies, the front and the back. You remember we trimmed off the excess, so we're going to secure the lining back like so. All the places we cut through, we are going to secure them by stitching on it like so. So here's how it looks like. That's the front, giving the bustier look, as you can see. And that's the armhole where you can attach your sleeve. And here's the waistline. You can attach whatever it is you want, the skirt, the trouser, whatever it is you want. And thank you for watching and have an amazing day.